The sun hung low over the endless plains, turning the dirt road into a ribbon of gold and dust. Along that lonely trail sat an old man, slumped against a splintered fence post. His body as worn as the land itself. His coat was torn at the seams, boots cracked, and a faded hat hid most of his weathered face. Every few minutes, a wagon or rider passed, kicking up clouds that swallowed him whole. He'd lift a trembling hand, hoping anyone might stop, but they never did. Folks looked away, pretending not to see, afraid to give what little mercy they had left. The prairie wind carried the faint sound of his dry cough, lost beneath the rumble of hooves. To them, he was just another forgotten soul on the frontier. But what no one knew, not the travelers, not the townsfolk, was that this old man's story was far from over. The road to Dust Creek stretched for miles, a sunburned scar across the land where even the wind seemed tired of blowing. The sky was an endless blue, pale and brittle, with buzzards circling high as if waiting for the earth itself to give up. Travelers along that road learned quick out here, mercy was a luxury, and kindness could get a man killed or worse, taken advantage of. Dust Creek wasn't much to look at, just a cluster of wooden buildings pressed between the hills and the dry riverbed. But to the weary and the desperate, it was a promise of shade, whiskey, and a place to rest aching bones. Down that lonely stretch rode Eli Turner, a young cowboy with the dust of 3 counties on his boots, and a quiet heart hardened by loss. His horse, a gray gelding named Jasper, moved slow, matching its rider's fatigue. Eli had just finished a long cattle drive for a rancher who paid in silver and silence. All he wanted was a drink and a bed that didn't move with the wind. But fate, like the desert, had its own way of humbling a man, and on this day, it waited for him just beyond the next bend in the trail. As Eli rounded the bend, the dry wind shifted, carrying with it the faint rasp of a man's breath. There, by the fence line, lay the old man, half sunk in dust, his back against a weathered post. His head had fallen to the side, revealing a face carved deep with years and sun. A stagecoach rolled past not long before, leaving nothing but swirling grit and the echo of indifference. Eli reined Jasper to a stop, squinting down at the still figure. Every instinct in him said to keep riding. Dust Creek was close, and he owed no man a rescue. But then the old man's eyes opened, pale and tired, holding something Eli hadn't seen in a long while, quiet dignity wrapped in sorrow. "They left me behind," the man whispered, voice cracked like dry timber. "Forgotten." Eli dismounted slowly, dust rising around his boots. Something told him this wasn't just another lost soul on the road. By the time Eli rode into Dust Creek, the sun had started its slow descent behind the ridge, throwing long, copper shadows across the street. The town stirred, lazily, men loitering outside the saloon, women sweeping porches, the blacksmith's hammer echoing like a heartbeat. When Eli led the old man, weak and half-conscious, through the main street, heads began to turn. Conversations hushed. It wasn't the sight of a stranger that drew their eyes, it was the fact that someone bothered to help him. At the saloon, Eli asked for water and a place to rest the man, but the owner, a thick-set fellow named Briggs, narrowed his eyes. "You'd best leave him be," he said, wiping the counter with a rough cloth. "Old fool's been wanderin' for days, claimin' nonsense about who he is." Caused a stir, then vanished. A woman at the doorway crossed herself. "He's bad luck," she whispered. Eli frowned. "Bad luck don't look like hunger and sunstroke," he said, but no one met his gaze. The townsfolk turned away, pretending to mind their own. As he helped the man to a bench outside, Eli couldn't shake the feeling crawling through him. Why did an old stranger scare a whole town? Eli ignored the wary stares and muttered talk. He guided the old man around the back of the inn, where a small stable stood half empty, its hay dry but clean. There he spread a blanket, fetched a bucket of water, and coaxed the stranger to drink. The man's hands trembled as he lifted the tin cup, his breath shallow but grateful. Eli brought him a bowl of soup from the kitchen, sitting nearby as the man sipped in silence, eyes fixed on something distant only he could see. After a while, the old man spoke in a low, cracked voice. "Once, people listened when I talked," he murmured. "I had a name that carried weight. Then it all slipped away." Eli smiled faintly, thinking it was just fever talk, the mind wandering backward. But when he went to adjust the blanket, something glinted on the man's finger, a heavy gold ring stamped with a state insignia. Eli froze. That wasn't the kind of jewelry ordinary drifters wore. Eli turned the old man's hand gently, the lamplight flickering across the gold seal. He'd seen that insignia before on letters, official documents, and the sheriff's badge that bore the governor's mark. His heart quickened. "Where'd you get this ring, old-timer?" he asked softly. The man looked up, eyes glistening with something deeper than shame. "Didn't get it," he rasped. "It was mine. I am Thomas Wainwright." The name struck Eli like a hammer blow. Every ranch hand and drifter in the territory knew that name, the governor's father. "Long thought dead or lost years ago." Thomas coughed, his words trembling. "I wouldn't back his greed. He wanted power, not service. I stood in his way. So he buried me with silence." Eli sat back, stunned. The man everyone ignored wasn't a beggar at all. He was a man of principle, cast aside by his own blood. Pride had broken him, but integrity had kept him alive. By morning, the quiet town of Dust Creek buzzed with whispers. Word had spread like wildfire. Eli Turner was sheltering a man claiming to be the governor's father. By noon, the sheriff rode in, dust trailing his horse like smoke. Sheriff Crane was a broad man with a smile that never reached his eyes, the kind who carried the law like a weapon. He dismounted outside the stable and called out, "Turner, step aside. The governor don't want that man found." Eli stood his ground, jaw set. "He's sick, Sheriff. Needs a doctor, not a noose." Crane spat in the dirt. "He's a burden best forgotten." Orders came straight from the Capitol. The old man stirred, hearing those words, pain flickering across his face. Ellie's hands tightened into fists. He'd seen enough men trampled by power to know right from wrong. Fear tugged at him, but justice spoke louder. "Then you'll have to forget me too," he said quietly. The sheriff's temper boiled quick as summer tar. He dragged Eli by the arm toward the main street, shouting for folks to gather. Within minutes, the townspeople crowded outside the saloon, drawn by the scent of conflict. The old man sat weakly on a bench nearby, eyes hollow but watching. Crane jabbed a finger at Eli. "This fool's defying the law to protect a liar," he barked. "Ain't no glory in helping a madman." Eli pulled free, his voice cutting through the murmurs. "Madman or not, he's still a man, and no one, no matter how old, poor, or forgotten, deserves to die alone on the side of the road." His words hung heavy in the dry air. Faces shifted, shame softening hard lines. Even Briggs, the saloon owner, looked down. Just then, the thunder of hooves broke the silence. A rider galloped in, dust flying, bearing the seal of the Capitol. He handed Crane a sealed letter, his breath ragged. The sheriff's eyes widened as he read. The governor himself was on his way. Ellie's defiance had reached him. For the first time, the sheriff's swagger faded. The crowd waited, hushed, as the weight of truth began to settle over Dust Creek. By dusk, the air cooled and the sky burned with streaks of crimson and gold. The governor's carriage rolled into Dust Creek, escorted by two riders who looked more like mourners than guards. When he stepped down, the crowd parted in silence. Governor Wainwright, stern, proud, and polished, hesitated at the sight of the frail old man slumped on the bench. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then the old man lifted his head, eyes soft with both love and ache. "Took you long enough, boy," he whispered. The governor's face cracked, pride slipping away like dust and rain. He knelt beside his father, voice trembling. "I should have come sooner." A tear traced the old man's cheek as he reached for Ellie's hand. "You saw me when no one else would," he said faintly. Around them, the townsfolk stood still, hats lowered, as if the desert itself paused to honor a bond restored by kindness. As the night settled over Dust Creek, the last light of day glimmered off the old man's ring, now resting in Ellie's palm. The wind whispered through the empty street, carrying with it a truth as old as the frontier itself. Sometimes, the smallest act of kindness can uncover the biggest truth and change more than just one life. The narrator's voice softened, drawing the listener close. "Tell me, friend, would you have stopped on that road or kept riding like the rest?" Compassion, humility, and courage are never wasted. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true-hearted tales of the Old West.